Hey folks, welcome to the Effective Remote Work live stream today on Friday afternoon. Just figured this would be a fun time to get on and chat about some Obsidian and productivity stuff. If you have any questions before we get going, go ahead and drop those in the chat box. We'll gladly answer any questions that you have today, whether they're completely relevant to the stream or not. Not really a big deal. This is just a time just to chat. One of the things that I've been thinking about today, though, has been there are a number of new plugins that are available for Obsidian that I think would actually be great for using Obsidian as a sort of project manager. And so today what I want to do is, just while we're working here anyway, is to just dive in and create a brand new vault, take a look at some of these plugins and see how we might be able to structure a vault that's exclusively used for project management. Now, the way I have my vault structured right now is I have kind of a personal, more journal type vault that's not published. And then I have my main vault, which has some of my project notes as well as the Zettelkasten that I work on as well in there. And that one's also published. And one of the things I've struggled with in creating that has been, how do I differentiate between notes that I want to publish and notes that I don't? Because, I mean, a lot of my project management, task management type stuff that I do in Obsidian right now and taking notes on different things, I don't really want published on the internet. But the Zettelkasten stuff that I do have, largely I do want published. And so I've been wrestling through, like, how do I structure those vaults for that? Well, now with considering potentially using Obsidian with some of these plugins as a project management tool of sorts, I think that might be pretty easy to figure out. So instead of trying to mush everything into one vault, I'd split it out into a separate vault. All the project stuff would go in the projects vault, and then the Zettelkasten note type stuff would stay in another vault, and then all of that eventually would be able to be published. So that's kind of generally what I am looking at diving into today's live stream. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat box. Happy to talk through things, answer questions that you might have. Also, if you haven't yet already, please be sure to subscribe, not describe, but subscribe to this channel. And if you're interested too, we also have a newsletter, and you can get that at effectiveremotework.com/newsletter if you're interested in staying up on all of the content that we produce. So I'm going to open up Obsidian. We're going to create a brand new vault and just kind of get going and see where this takes us today. Okay, so I've got my main vault here. I'm going to create a brand new one. I'm just going to title it Projects for something as a placeholder. It'll go in my main vaults folder that I sync in Dropbox. I create. All right. So what I'm going to start off by doing is just adjust some settings and plugins that I like to use. I'm going to show front matter. Then I'm going to default view mode. That's okay. That's all right. Deleted files. It should be okay. I do like to automatically update all of my internal links because generally I will adjust note titles from time to time, and I don't like having broken links. So that's helpful to have there. Vault folder, I think I'll adjust that in a little bit when I think about structure. Then we'll adjust some of that a little later too. I'm going to pop this over to light mode for now, just because it's a little easier to see. Hey Brian, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining today. Just digging through a couple things in here for a brand new vault I'm working on. Okay, core plugins. I'm going to have the tag pane. Starred. Daily notes, templates for sure. Let's see. And then workspaces. Workspaces is an awesome feature if you haven't tested it out yet at all, where you can save a setup of panes and how you have them configured for different modes of work or different types of tasks that you're doing inside of Obsidian. Then third-party plugins, I'm going to turn off safe mode so that I can install them. And there are a couple I am going to take a look at today. Daily planner and some scripts myself at the moment. New releases got me like, yeah. Yeah, I know. It's there's a lot of cool stuff going on with Obsidian lately. I am so thrilled with it. It's just amazing the work that's being done. And then also the work that's being done in the community too. I just can't believe it. It's pretty great. So let's see. I'm going to do the calendar plugin. And then I'm going to install advanced tables. These are just kind of some of the random things that I am looking at. Now there is this day planner plugin. I'm going to install it. I haven't messed with it too much. It's a little too, I think in a productivity sense, a little too like granular for my needs. I tend not to do too well. Every time I try to time box or something like that, or to try to tell myself I'm going to do this task at this time, it just completely falls apart for me. And so instead of this, I'm going to check this out anyway on this video because I think it's an interesting concept. But largely I'm going to, if I'm going to use Obsidian for more of a project manager, it's going to be more high level. I'll be tracking some tasks and stuff here as well. But it's not going to be, I'm going to plan every minute of my day inside of Obsidian. That's generally what I use my bullet journal for. Let's see here. Review plugin. This is Ryan's plugin. This is actually, Ryan is the guy who actually kind of inspired me to take a look at this because he's been building a lot of these cool plugins. There's Review, and then there's Workbench, I think is the other one. I'll install that one too. The combination of those together, Review allows you to basically surface a note at a later date and time so that you can look at it. For example, if you're interested in surfacing a project on a specific day so you can review it, or on a weekly basis or something like that, you can do that. It'll link them to your daily notes, which is pretty handy. And then the Workspace plugin is the other one that I'm looking for, Workbench, rather. I keep wanting to call it Workspace, but it's Workbench. This one, I think, is what kind of pushed me over the edge to at least seriously look at using Obsidian as a project manager of sorts. And this one allows you basically to quickly, and I'll let the little GIF play here, but this one allows you to quickly and easily link stuff to a workspace note or workbench note. Basically, you can have a note set aside that if you want to, if you're looking through your lists of things that you want to do or things that you want to take a look at in a given day, you can link those using the Workbench plugin very quickly and easily to that workbench note so that you have a quick reference for that. So I think this has a lot of potential. And then if, with other stuff that you can do, like for example, if there was a really easy way to kind of get a overarching view of all the incomplete tasks that you have in a setup, I think that would be like exactly what I need for task management in this. Now, a little bit of a note on looking at task management inside of Obsidian versus something like a task manager. I'm currently using Todoist. I've used OmniFocus, Todoist in the past as well. I've tried things. I've basically tried every single task manager that's out there. The thing that ultimately draws me to using plain text or a tool like Obsidian for task management is the ability to very easily kind of mush together both notes, ideas, and then tasks as well for a project. I like keeping a lot of that information together when I can, just because it's so much easier to get a clearer picture of where a project is at when I have all of that information there. if I have my notes inside of a task manager, or rather I have my tasks in a task manager and my notes somewhere else, that gets to be a little tricky, in my opinion, to link those and keep that information together to where I can actually get a sense of where something is at. And the reason being is that you have to, if you're in your task manager, you're in one context, which is tasks. And if you're in your note software or your reference library, then you're in another context there. And it's not very easy to pull them together. Now, there are apps on the Mac like Hook, and there's always been like direct file links that you can use for something like that. But I have found that generally to be pretty clumsy. Other people will say, well, what about due dates or reminders or recurrence? And those are things that I've considered too. And for the reminders stuff, I don't even use Todoist for reminders right now. I primarily use Todoist just for lists to try to help me keep track of where something is at and what I need to do next with it. So that's kind of the general idea of why I'm looking at using Obsidian for some kind of a project management system. I think that plain text has a really great capability to be able to allow you to work a little bit more freely and seamlessly. It's the exact same reason that I love the bullet journal so much. There's so much fluidity with it, and you're not locked into one way of doing things. But you also, the thing I miss with the bullet journal with digital tools is that once you write it down, it's there. And if you want to move it or do something different with it or reorganize it, well, then you've got to rewrite it somewhere else and try to figure out how to do that. So there are limitations to that, and there are limitations to using plain text too. This is largely just an exploration of if this is something that I would continue doing. Now, I did do a live stream. It's probably been over a month ago or so now, where I switch back to camera here for just a second while I'm talking, where I was looking at doing plain text inside of Obsidian and trying to integrate it with some other tools like what I believe there was a command line Kanban board and things like that you could integrate, but it didn't really come together. And so now with the extra tools that we have here now available through the third-party plugins, I think that there is a possibility for this. So I'm going to dive in and just start working through some of this. If you have any questions, please pop it into the chat and let me know if there's anything you're interested in seeing or talking about. Okay. So I know the biggest thing for me is I need to keep my kind of my annual plans in mind. Then I need to do seasonal. I don't even do those as much anymore, just because life is life right now with the pandemic. Oh, I forgot to switch back over to the screen. I suppose I should do that so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm looking at annual plans, seasonal plans, and then I probably want to do projects. And then let's do just like a demo project and see what might that look like. And I'll also probably want to sort out a project list. And then also, I think I'm going to want to have a way to do daily notes. Daily notes are a good place to capture one-off things or to capture stuff. And the beauty of having block references now is that you can link those tasks or items from a daily note and embed them in another place inside of your vault using Preview. Now, you do have to use Preview to see that, which is a downside at this point in time, but it's pretty awesome that you can even do that, I think. Okay, so demo project. I think I'm not gonna use front matter in general with this, but I am gonna use something. Let's see. data I need to know is kind of the area. So an area of responsibility of sorts. So this would be like effective remote work for me, or it would be personal, or it would be discourse where I work. So then I just kind of need a way to delineate that, and it'd be pretty easy to do that just with a tag, I think. Or we'll just do ERW for now. Let's see here. We'll do a status too. I should just list all these. Status, it would be on hold or active or completed. And then probably backlog. I like to use more of the, if we're looking at terminology, I like to use more of the agile terminology. I definitely am not a huge fan of agile development in general, just because it tends to be layers and layers of structure on a process that can be a lot more fluid these days, even though it's supposed to make you faster. But I do like these more agile terminologies to where I've got projects, they're on a list somewhere that need to be done at some point. There's not necessarily a due date for that. But then I can look at my backlog of projects or things that I want to do in the future, and then I can move those into an active state at some point. Now, there might be another way that I can do this too, and it might be on my project list. So instead, I could maybe have active and then on hold backlog for my projects. And then I can move those around a little bit more easily instead of having to maintain tags. Because I know that, and I know myself, if I have to do that and go into a note directly to edit a tag, that's probably not going to work very well for me. Okay, so generally, I don't like to segment things too much as far as notes goes. Notes and tasks, I like to be pretty fluid about it. But I do know that probably in this instance, I'm probably going to want to have a tasks, like next actions section. That will give me a chance to be able to segment out next actions, and then I'll just put a horizontal rule there, which will render like that, that I can just start to put in the extra information below, or just how I'm writing out all this stuff. I think this is a good starting point for me. I'll open Todoist over on my other screen quick, and then try to take a look at that briefly too. Because there's some insights to that in there as far as structure that I've liked. Okay. So here, I have this overarching structure. I think I talked about this in the last live stream that I did, where there's this more, I have kind of 3 levels of structure and of thinking, and one is more visionary. One is mid-tier, it's more strategic, like where am I thinking of going next? And then the next is tactical. These are the day-to-day things that I need to do. And then lastly, it's not really a tier of sorts, but it's definitely an area that I need to manage, is the system stuff. These are all the reviews that I need to do on a regular basis. It's something that needs to happen one time, or it needs to happen daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal, annual, so on and so forth. So this is kind of the structure that I'm looking to replicate in some way, shape, or form inside of here. So I think visionary, strategic, tactical. probably a more apt way to reference those in here versus trying to be stringent about annual or seasonal. Because there can be like, I want to like have a couple of different areas. So I have, if I look, let's see here. If I look under my strategic plan, I'm just going to make sure I don't have anything super sensitive in there. I don't think I do, but yeah, I think that's okay. So if I look here, I kind of have three main channels of strategy that I'm looking at in, for developing myself and moving things forward. I've got learning, growing, and iterating. And then I have an on deck section where I can just kind of stack up some ideas to where I'm interested in looking at things next. So let's see here. I'm going to do learning, growing, iterating. And learning is pretty self-explanatory. Growing is something that I'm looking at growing bigger or improving, expanding upon. And iterating is something that's existing that I'm looking at making minimal improvements to. So this might be a little way that I need to improve my productivity system or something like that. Okay. Well, this isn't really getting into those plugins yet at all, but I am interested in checking those out. If I go open a daily note for today, I'm just kind of experimenting with some of this stuff. If you're just jumping on, we're just chatting with about building a type of project manager, a task management system inside of Obsidian. Forgot I need to turn these on, so I'll turn all these plugins on. Oh, I need the natural language dates plugin. Okay. Close that. Okay. Look at this one here. All right. That's pretty good. Review. Okay, so gotta check out some settings here. Daily notes. New file location is going to be in daily notes. Calendar. Okay. I'm not going to mess with those right now. Right. Monday is my start of the week, generally. Even though I know in America, we tend not to have the calendar set up that way. Weeks start on Sunday. I sometimes like to have the weekend show up all the way at the far side of the calendar, just because it makes planning a little bit easier for the weekend. And then review. Daily note location is daily notes. Review section heading. Okay. Default review date looks good. Okay. Yeah, that is fancy right there to be able to embed a block with just a Command-Alt-Click. Super cool, I think. All right. So I'm going to just, oh, I forgot to adjust my daily note location. Okay, I got to do that yet. So we go files and links. Oh, never mind. I did that. I just didn't do it right. Delete. Today's note. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to say test task, and then I'm going to Command-Option-Shift-Click, which is super cool. What that does is it does an embedded link of let's see, of that note in the workbench note. So that's not exactly the way I wanted to handle that. That would be something helpful, is if you can change the view on this. That is so handy to be able to do that. All right. Yeah, because I don't really foresee myself needing to directly work on the workbench note if I have these shortcuts. So these shortcuts are super handy. Maybe I want to list a project 1 here, and then I can alt click that, and that links to that there on the workbench. This is really nice, the workbench capability, because it can give you a place to put all of your active stuff. So one way that I could handle this is on the project list, or I could basically just title something like, in flight or active, and then be able to link to it. I mean, you can even do this with headings here too. So if I wanted to link to my active projects heading, I could literally just Command Alt or Option Shift click on it, and then I can get that reference there. And so then if I wanted to link to project 1 there, I could. But okay, I've got to change that because that's not exactly the way that worked. All right, so workbench, current heading or section. That's what I want. Except I want to embed it instead. We'll remove that one, remove that. That is so handy. This is just a great, easy way to move stuff around, to put it in an active state or to put it in a place where you're going to be looking at it on a regular basis. Like I've mentioned earlier in the live stream, this is a great opportunity to be able to, say you're combing through a list of tasks that you have and you want to say, hey, these 5 things I'm going to work on this week. You can pull them over into a workbench note and then be able to quickly and easily get to them from here. I really like that. And then you don't have to move it around. That was one of the challenges I was running into when I was initially looking at developing a sort of project management or task management workflow in Obsidian, is that we didn't have block references at that point in time. And so if you were going to capture a task into daily notes, you either had to copy it or move it into the appropriate place. And I was looking at trying to do it all inside of one note, but now that we have block references, there's a lot that you can do in this plugin or in this software now with that. It's just, there's so much power with that, and I'm just kind of blown away, honestly, kind of nerding out about how awesome Obsidian is with the features that they're developing. This is just kind of the general idea that I'm trying to build out here. Now, obviously, I don't really have, I'm not going to start pulling in my current projects now into here. But one thing I think that I am going to do is do that on, not on the live stream, just because I have some sensitive stuff in there that I don't want to share publicly. But when I do that, I think that'll give me a much better sense of what can happen with Obsidian as a project manager. Now, one thing I do want to take a look at is maybe review that plugin. So add this note for a review. Okay, so then I want to look at it tomorrow. That's pretty cool. So then if I open up tomorrow's note, it creates a section with a link to that. That's really handy. So that gives me the ability to say, hey, I want to remind myself of whatever it is on a future date and time to take a look at something. And then when I get to that daily note, especially if I'm working out of that daily note, I think this would work especially well if you are every single day opening up that daily note, which is not something that I've gotten in the habit of doing recently. But if I got into a daily note every single day like this, then I would be able to go in and review those projects. So this could be helpful not just for reviewing a project in a getting things done sense, but also for being able to dive into a note and say, hey, remind yourself of it. Say, hey, I want to take a look at this today. I want to make sure that I work on this today. That could definitely be a way to approach that if you need some kind of a reminder. Now, again, kind of the way I'm looking at this working for me is that I'm not looking at having reminders or scheduling and things like that in here. I'm more looking to create a space where I can see what's actively on my plate, what I've got kind of in the backlog, and then be able to make decisions about that, and then also track what's kind of the open items with that. And then anything that requires a reminder of sorts, I can use reminders on my phone very, very easily for that. I don't necessarily have to have all of that in one place. So that's kind of a general summary of what I'm looking at to do here. One plugin I didn't take a look at yet was the Daily Planner. I think I have to look at this a little bit in the documentation just to kind of see how it works a little bit, because it's there's a lot going on here, and it's kind of cool what the developer has done with this. So you can create a checklist with times and tasks, which will be automatically tracked during the day. Okay. Day planner heading and rule used to identify the extent of the day planner. Heading must be used, but can be any heading. Task items is important, as this is what is used to calculate the times of each task and the intervals between tasks. The format should be hour, minute task. And then use 24-hour times, okay? Show day planner timeline. That, I think, is a super interesting thing that was created, is the fact to be able to show the timeline in a visual sense like that. That is kind of cool, I do have to say. The status bar at the bottom, being able to see task status and such, and like a Pomodoro timer, that's pretty cool too. I might actually use this depending on how much I get into using this. File mode, command mode. Okay, so you can either have it automatically create the files each day, or you can insert day planner for today within any notes. Okay, that's kind of interesting. You can see a Gantt chart. Okay, that's cool. Hold on just a moment. I'll be right back. I thought I had somebody coming upstairs. Okay, all right, we'll dive into this now. So, looking at the day planner, I've got the calendar over here. That's from a different plugin. So if I go, let's see, what, 4, actually it would be 16:30, right? No, it'd be 8. Oh my gosh, I have to do 24-hour time in my head now. So yeah, it would be 16:30, wrap up day. Okay, let's see. Show the day planner timeline. Just take a look at that. No planner data. Track current time. There it is. Okay. Yeah, so if you were looking at doing some kind of a time boxing thing with this day planner plugin would be really, really cool for that. Okay. I'm just going to move this one. Now that's something I know that has been a little buggy for me. I don't know if it's been buggy for anybody else, but trying to move stuff into a pane here is just kind of a pain. It's been kind of challenging to figure that out, but I guess you just got to drop it into the pane itself like that. It's just the UI for it is a little goofy. Probably some feedback I can give to the devs. So I could do that, and then what, 1700. Make dinner. It's pretty fast how that generates. I like that. Track current time there. That's pretty nice. So it stays at the current time, so you can see what you want to do. One used to control plus enter for a task to mark as done. Does it work with this plugin too? I guess let's find out. Yes, it does. Command enter does. That is fancy. And I actually forgot that shortcut was even in Obsidian now. So thanks for reminding me of that. So then, now the one thing I'm not too sure on at this point is how you do like the Pomodoro mode that's talked about in here. I'm just going to take a look here to see if I can figure that one out. Okay. I'm probably missing something, but you know. Also, if you're looking here, this plug is in alpha right now, so they're recommending to make sure that you're using this in a test vault because it could do stuff to your notes. It doesn't look too terribly scary with what it's doing, unless there's some kind of background processing that's happening. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but definitely something to keep in mind. Okay. So you can have breaks in there like that, current tasks. Okay. So do you have to manually enter that? No. Okay, so it's more if I have something like this. So we'll do 15:45 live stream. That's our live task right now. Okay. That's kind of cool how that works. So we've got 5 minutes or whatever till 4:30. There's some fancy stuff that's going on here. I definitely like it. It's a little interesting. Maybe not necessarily the way that I would do things, but that's not a bad thing, you know. If I check that off, what happens next? Interested to find out there. Or does it not let me check it off? It might not. Okay. Well, there's just a lot of stuff that we can play around with now with all these plugins. And I do think that there is a lot of promise and potential for being able to build some kind of a project manager inside of Obsidian. I know this is something that I'm going to be working on upcoming, just trying to figure out what this looks like, because I'm really interested in moving some of that stuff to more of a homegrown or task or text-based solution from a more traditional task management tool. I'm just looking at kind of experimenting with that and seeing where it goes. I'm going to be wrapping up the live stream here in just a couple of minutes. If you have any questions before we close, be sure to pop them in the chat. But definitely thank you for joining today. Again, if you didn't catch it at the beginning of the live stream, we have a brand new Discord community. There should be a link in the description here. But if there's not, I'll be sure to put one there. And then we also do have a discourse community as well, where we try to keep more of our more long-term conversations. That's something that I've had for a long time, but I'm looking at rebooting it. It's kind of tailed off with the pandemic and other stuff going on here. Emil says, what do you think about maps of content? Does it fit well into research? That's a great question. And I think something to, consider with that is just what do you need? Maps of content are, I think, a really great way to organize specific categories of notes that don't necessarily fit into a broader index or that are part of a specific index. And what we're talking about here too largely goes back to Nick Milo's Light Kit, which is a framework for being able to connect data or notes together in a more seamless, easy, fluid way. I think Nick's stuff is fantastic. And to answer your question about does it fit well into research, I guess that kind of depends on what kind of research you're talking about. If you have, the way I see it is if you have a category of notes that are grouped together and you need a way to signify that those notes are connected together, then a map of content works really well for that. If you have a bunch of disparate notes that aren't really connected together or they're maybe loosely affiliated with one another, then maybe a map of content will maybe not be the best choice, and it might be better to just stick to linking the relevant notes together and trying to create more of a path for yourself to follow when you come back to them. That's the approach that I've largely been taking right now with my Zettelkasten, is to try to link those notes together instead of trying to bubble them up into a map of content of sorts. But that being said, it is something that is, I think, really helpful to have. It's a great tool to have in the tool bag if you need something that can help you with that. So I hope that answers your question. I know that was kind of a maybe non-specific answer, but if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to put them in the chat too. And if you didn't get your question answered today on the live stream, feel free to pop it into the comments. I do watch those, and we'll be answering questions there as well. I think that about wraps things up for today's live stream. I thank you again, everyone, for watching. I appreciate you hanging out with me on this Friday afternoon. And if you're watching this at a later point in time, thanks for watching. And I will chat to you in the next one. I know one thing that I'm going to be doing over the next month at Effective Remote Work here is I'm going to be dialing back my content production just for the month of December to give myself a little bit of a rest break to kind of regroup and get some vision for 2021 as to what my life and what effective remote work looks like. I will be posting content. It just won't be quite as frequent. Anyway, again,